Have you ever wondered why the world population has become so unhealthy? Well, I have. In fact, about 25 years ago I asked myself a similar question. The question was, why, in spite of all our scientific advancements, has the world become so obese, sick and unhealthy, just as I was also? We know that most people around the world follows the recommended philosophy: eat a well-balanced diet of protein, fat and carbohydrates, and also exercise 3 to 5 times a week to promote good health. But yet, we still struggle to stay healthy. But, what if it is not you? What if the information that you have been given by those who claim to have studied and understand how to be healthy is not exactly truthful? Could this actually be the reason you struggle to be healthy? Could this be the reason you must work so hard to get so little results? To be sure, maybe you should watch this informative video, describing how the human body reacts to the food that we eat today. We have all been told that in order to be healthy, you must eat a balanced diet consisting of protein, fat, and carbohydrates. But is this a true statement? Well, let's find out. There are basically two methods of proof to prove a statement to be true: to assume the statement to be true, or to assume the statement to be false. I will show proof of this truth by assuming the statement to be true. In this video I will examine the functions of the human digestion system, and explain its functions. I also will explain what causes the digestive system to malfunction and fail. Doctors refer to this as illness and disease. First, let me start by explaining what the human digestive system does. The human digestive system is a converter system that can convert protein, fat and carbohydrates into the nutrients the human body needs. Now, the human body is mainly composed of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium and trace elements. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and calcium accounts for more than 93% of the total mass of the human body. So we see that the human digestive system is a conversion system that can convert protein, fat and carbohydrates into carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium and trace elements to maintain and repair the human physical body. These facts are important. First, the human body does not need, want, or desire food. The human body wants, desires, and needs nutrients. It just so happens that the nutrients are in the food. Second, all foods that are consumed by the human system are first processed by the liver before nutrients are distributed into the bloodstream, except 3 critical nutrients. These nutrients are water, salt and glucose. These 3 nutrients, once digested, will enter directly into the bloodstream for immediate use by the human system. Understanding the human digestive system. The human digestive system is a system that is composed of solid and hollow organs. The liver, gallbladder, kidney and pancreas are the solid organs, while the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, colon and rectum are the hollow organs. The functions of the solid organs are to filter. They filter waste from the processing of the nutrients from the food source. And the hollow organs provide temporary storage and pathways, from the system entrance, mouth, to the system exit, rectum. Okay. Let's examine how the human digestive system functions. To the right of the screen you will find a diagram of the system, to give you a visual of the digestion system as its processes are explained. You should be aware that the digestion process can be initiated by sight, sound, and smell. Now, let's begin. When the human body senses the presence, or the expectation of the consumption of possible nutrients, it alerts the digestive system and the process starts. First, the salivary glands secretes hormones to help the teeth and tongue break down food in the mouth. Food enters the human body through the mouth. After the food is broken down in the mouth by chewing, the food then travels down the esophagus into the stomach. The stomach then produces hormones to help break down the food even further. If the stomach identifies glucose, it will initiate insulin production in the pancreas. The pancreas then sends 1 unit of insulin for each unit of glucose to the stomach. The insulin and glucose then enters directly into the human bloodstream for use by the human body. Now, once the food is digested, it travels into the small intestines. While in the small intestines, the salt and water will enter the bloodstream through the walls of the small intestines. From the small intestines the digested food travels into the liver where the liver processes all food into nutrients and waste. The nutrients are then stored in the liver, and the waste is expelled into the waste system. Liquid waste travels into the kidneys, and the solid waste is expelled into the large intestines for waste storage and final extraction of any leftover nutrients in the waste. Finally, waste is stored in the large intestine until waste removal from the rectum through the anus. This is the standard functioning of the human digestion system. These are important facts to remember. 1. The human body is composed of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, and trace elements. 2. The human body completely processes carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, and trace elements. Thus, if these elements are consumed, all excess is expelled from the system as waste. 3. The human body does not absorb nitrogen and phosphorus in their natural raw form or state. 4. The human body converts nitrates and phosphates into nitrogen and phosphorus. Nitrogen and phosphorus are naturally absorbed by all living creatures on Earth, through the Earth's own nitrogen and phosphorus cycles. 5. The human body does not process calcium efficiently. Vitamin D increases the human body's efficiency in the absorption of vitamin D. And, the human skin produces a type of vitamin D that is not absorbed by the skin. But when it interacts with sunlight, it is converted into a form of vitamin D that the body can absorb, thus increasing the vitamin D level of the body. 6. The human body uses a form of hydrolysis to break down waste in the human system. How the human digestive system works. The human digestion system can convert protein, fat, and carbohydrates into carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, and trace elements. But, did you know that the human digestive system then converts carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen into free-form amino acids, fatty acids, and glucose, for use by the physical body? But this is not the original design of the human digestion system. The human system has evolved to perform these functions because humans began consuming animal flesh and domesticated vegetables. You will understand after I explain the digestion and waste removal systems processes. Be aware, before the invention of fire, humans could not consume raw meat without becoming violently sick from its consumption. Defining protein, fat, and carbohydrates, and their relationship with the human digestive system. Protein. Protein is not a nutrient. Protein is the result of a process. The human body converts amino acids and nitrogen into the protein that is needed for the human body. Fat. Fat is not a nutrient. Fat is the result of a process. The human body converts fatty acids and phosphorus into the fat that is needed for the human body. Carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are not nutrients. The human digestive system converts carbohydrates into glucose, or its stored energy form, glycogen. Is protein really the result of a process? Yes. Protein is made, just like you make a cotton shirt. It is the result of a process. So let's look at the process of making a cotton shirt, and compare it to making protein. First, the cotton must be removed from its source, the cotton plant. Then, the cotton is stretched and broken down into its individual fibers. Next, the cotton fibers are woven into cotton strands. Then, the cotton strands are woven into cotton thread. Finally, the cotton thread is woven into the cotton material that will be used to make the cotton shirt. Now let's compare that process with the process of making protein. First, free-form amino acids are removed from its source, protein. Then, the free-form amino acids are combined to make short chains of amino acids. Next, the short chains of amino acids are combined to make long chains of amino acids. Then, the long chains of amino acids are combined to make proteins. Finally, the proteins are combined to make the protein that will be used to make the protein of the human body. Okay. Now let's examine the differences of sugar and carbohydrates. Science classifies carbohydrates as sugars, but are they really the same? Well, let's examine the basic forms of carbohydrates and sugars. Important, there are 3 types of carbohydrates produced by plants created by Mother Nature. Also, there are 2 types of sugars created by humans through the domestication, genetic modification, of plants created by nature. This is very important. All carbohydrates are now classified as sugars, but not all sugars function the same in the human system. These are the naturally occurring carbohydrates created by Mother Nature. Glucose, simple carbohydrate. Fructose, simple carbohydrate. Glycogen, simple carbohydrate. Lactose, simple carbohydrate. And, these are the sugars created by the science of men. Sucrose, complex carbohydrate. Starch, non-water soluble, zero-calorie, non-nutrient, binder filler. Understanding how the human digestive system interacts with the different types of carbohydrates. These are descriptions of the carbohydrates that are produced by Mother Nature. Glucose. Glucose is a simple sugar. It is the primary energy source of all living organisms. Glucose is the most abundant carbohydrate on Earth. Fructose. Fructose is a simple sugar that is primarily found in fruit from fruit trees. Fructose is composed of glucose and glycogen. When in the stomach, fructose stimulates insulin resistance in the pancreas. Glycogen. Glycogen are small fragments of glucose used by the body as stored energy in the fat cells. Lactose. Lactose is a sugar that is created by nursing mammals. Lactose is composed of glycogen. Now, these are the carbohydrates created by the science of men. Sucrose, or table sugar, is a complex carbohydrate composed of glucose and fructose. And finally starch. Starch is a filler, binder, that is created by the plant through the human manipulation, DNA modification, to bond the two unequal sugar molecules of glucose and fructose. Let's examine how the human digestive system interacts with the different types of carbohydrates. Let's first examine the carbohydrates that are created by Mother Nature. Glucose. When glucose is detected in the stomach, it initiates insulin production in the pancreas, and the pancreas sends units of insulin to the stomach. Once the insulin reaches the stomach, it pairs with units of glucose and then enters the human bloodstream for function. Fructose. When fructose is detected in the stomach, it stimulates insulin resistance. The fructose then travels to the liver where it is broken down into its base elements of glucose and glycogen. The insulin that was stored, because of the insulin resistance, is now distributed in the liver, and the insulin and glucose then enter into the bloodstream for function. Glycogen. Once fructose is broken down, its component of glycogen is stored in fat cells for future energy. Now let's examine the human body's interaction with the sugars created by the science of men. Sucrose. Because sucrose consists of both glucose and fructose, it causes confusion in the digestive system. Because the glucose is attached to the fructose, the stomach does not recognize it as glucose, thus, the stomach does not initiate insulin production in the pancreas, and no units of insulin are sent to the stomach from the pancreas. And because the fructose is bonded with glucose, the fructose does not stimulate insulin resistance, so insulin can be released in the liver. The liver processes the sucrose but malfunctions because there is no insulin for the glucose that is now in the liver. Starch. Starch is a binder. This is the substance that was created by the plant through genetic manipulation, to bind the glucose molecules to the fructose molecules. Starch is a clear, tasteless, odorless, nutrient-deficient bonding agent. It is also non-water soluble and at room temperature, becomes a solid in the human body. It is bonded to the glucose molecule and is stored as fat attached to the glycogen. In order for the starch to be removed by the human system, it must first be heated to a temperature that causes the solid starch to turn into a plasma state. Thus, to remove the waste of starch, the human body temperature must be raised to a point that causes it to become plasma. Then the human system can slowly remove the starch from the human system. Because of this, starch accumulates in the human body, increasing body mass but not body density, causing the body to become soft. Let's now examine the way the human body processes animal protein compared to plant protein. Animal protein is composed of protein, fat, and animal protein fiber. So now let's look at how the human body processes it. First, the protein must be broken down into proteins. Then the proteins are broken down into long chains of amino acids. Next, the long chains of amino acids are broken down into short chains of amino acids. Then those short chains are broken down into their individual free-form amino acids. Now the system absorbs the free-form amino acids it needs and combine them to make short chains of amino acids. Then the short chains are combined to make long chains and the long chains are combined to make proteins. Finally, those proteins are combined to produce the different protein that the human system uses. Because animal protein and fat is not water-soluble, the human system struggles to eliminate it as waste. Now let's view how the body processes plant protein. Plant protein is composed of short chains of amino acids. First, the short chains of amino acids are broken down into their individual free form of amino acids. Then the free form amino acids are combined to make short chains of amino acids. Then the short chains are combined to make long chains of amino acids, and the long chains are combined to make proteins. Finally, those proteins are combined to make the protein that the human system uses. Because plant fiber is water-soluble, all plant waste is completely expelled from the human system as waste. There are 3 naturally occurring cycles that Mother Earth performs that causes function within all living creatures on planet Earth. One cycle is the nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen is a colorless, odorless inert gas that makes up 60% of the Earth's atmosphere. This is important. Even though nitrogen is inert, it cannot be absorbed into the human system in its natural raw state. Now let's examine Mother Earth's nitrogen cycle. The nitrogen in the air is absorbed by the Earth's soil. The soil, and its system of insects, bacteria and microbes, convert the nitrogen into nitrites which can be absorbed by the Earth's vegetation. The nitrites are absorbed by the plants through its roots, and the plant then converts the nitrites into nitrates which animals and humans can ingest. Animals and humans then eat the plants consuming the nitrates. The human system then converts the nitrates into nitrogen during the construction process of the creation of its protein. The animal and human then releases its excess nitrogen back into the air and soil. And the cycle continues. Now let's examine Mother Earth's phosphorus and sleep cycles. The phosphorus cycle. Phosphorus is rarely found on Earth in its natural raw state. On Earth, phosphorus is found and extracted from compound elements as phosphate. Let's look at its behavior. Phosphorus exists in the soil as compound minerals. The plant's roots absorb the phosphates, and when humans ingest the plants, they ingest the phosphates. Once ingested, the human body converts the phosphate into phosphorus as needed. The sleep cycle. The human sleep cycle is based on its circadian rhythm. Humans are classified as diurnal, night sleepers. The human sleep cycle is initiated by the body at sunset. When the sun starts to set, the human body starts producing a hormone that causes the body to sleep. It is during this time period that the human system maintains and repairs itself. Finally, before sunrise, the human body stops producing the hormone so the body can wake. The human digestive system, waste storage, waste removal systems. Important. This is the most critical of all the human systems. Now let's begin by examining the duration of time it takes the human digestive system to remove the waste from the food we eat once it has been digested. The duration of total waste removal of non-GMO plants, 6 to 24 hours. GMO plants, 6 hours to unknown time. Genetically modified plants produce starch, and starch is not water-soluble. The human system breaks down and removes waste using water. Because the starch cannot be removed using water, the system struggles to remove it from the body. In order to remove the starch, the body's temperature must first be raised to a temperature that will cause the starch to become a plasma. Once the starch is in a plasma state, the human body can slowly remove the starch before it returns to its solid state again, when the human body returns to its normal temperature. Non-GMO plant protein, 6 to 24 hours. Animal protein, 4 to 10 days. The human body itself is composed of protein and fat. By nature, the human body does not process protein and fat efficiently. The human body does not want to eat protein, because the human body itself is protein. Understanding the human waste system. The human body produces 3 types of waste: liquid, gas, and solid waste. Now let's examine the type of waste that is left in the human body after the digestion of the foods we eat today. The waste left in the human system after the digestion of non-genetically modified plants, none. The waste left in the human body after the digestion of genetically modified plants, starch. The waste left in the human body after the digestion of animal protein, nitrogen, animal fat, and animal fiber. The effects of the man-made sugar, sucrose, on the human system. First, let me explain what sucrose is. Sucrose, better known as table sugar, is produced by genetically modified plants such as beets, sugarcane, and sweet corn. Sucrose is also a complex carbohydrate that consists of 2 unequal sugar molecules bonded together by carbonic acid, starch. Now let me explain. Sucrose is composed of two simple sugar molecules bonded together by starch. These two carbohydrates are glucose and fructose. Independently, these two carbohydrates are processed by the human system with no system issues, and are completely processed by the system's normal process. But when the two carbohydrates enter the stomach attached to each other by starch, as a compound element, the system becomes confused. Glucose is normally identified by the stomach, and the pancreas then produces insulin. But, because the glucose is attached to starch, the system is not activated, and there is no insulin sent to the stomach for the glucose it contains. Then, because the fructose is attached to the fructose in the stomach does not stimulate insulin resistance, thus there is no insulin delivered in the liver after the fructose has been processed. This causes the system to malfunction. Doctors call this disease. The effects of the consumption of animal protein on the human system. This is important. Animal protein is composed of protein and fat. Human protein is composed of protein and fat. It is because of these two reasons that the human body does not want to consume and process protein and fat. But it can. The human body processes protein and fat very inefficiently, and can take as much as 2 weeks to completely digest and process the ingested protein and fat. This causes excess waste to accumulate in the human system. The waste first starts to accumulate in the colon and rectum. Then it can enter into the rest of the system. This can eventually clog and back up the system. This causes the system to malfunction. Doctors call this disease. Facts concerning the function of non-genetically modified plants on the human system. The human body is composed of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, and trace elements. The human body does not absorb nitrogen and phosphorus in their natural raw state. Mother Earth's nitrogen cycle and phosphorus cycle are the methods in which humans absorb nitrogen and phosphorus. The human system creates nitrogen and phosphorus through the ingestion of plants. Plants are mainly composed of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and calcium. Humans are mainly composed of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and calcium. Calcium is not absorbed by the human body efficiently. Vitamin D increases the body's efficiency to absorb calcium. The human body can create vitamin D from sunlight. The consumption of non-genetically modified plants by the human system can provide all the nutrients the human body needs without waste. Facts concerning the function of genetically modified plants on the human system. Genetically modified plants are composed of carbon, starch, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrates, phosphates, calcium, and trace elements. Genetically modified plants are composed of sucrose, a man-made sugar. Genetically modified plants are composed of starch, a man-made binder. The human system struggles to process sucrose. The ingestion of sucrose can cause the human system to malfunction. The human system struggles to process starch. The ingestion of starch can cause extreme weight gain in the human system. Human consumption of genetically modified plants provides the human system with some of the nutrients that the human body needs, but genetically modified plants also produce elements that cause stress in the human system, causing it to malfunction. Doctors call this disease. Facts concerning animal protein and the human body. Animal protein is composed of protein, fat, and fiber. Human protein is composed of protein, fat, and fiber. The human body does not process protein efficiently. The human body does not process fat efficiently. The human body does not process protein fiber efficiently. The human body does not process animal protein efficiently. The human body does not want to process animal protein, and processes it very inefficiently, because the human body is animal protein. Facts concerning the actual nutrients needed by the human body, versus the nutrients contained in the food we eat. Here are the actual nutrients that the human body must absorb from food. Free-form amino acids, fatty acids, glucose, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrates, phosphates, calcium, and trace elements. Animal protein is composed of protein, fat, nitrogen, and animal fiber. Genetically modified plants are composed of short chains of amino acids, fatty acids, sucrose, starch, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrates, phosphates, calcium, and trace elements. Non-genetically modified plants are composed of short chains of amino acids, fatty acids, glucose, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrates, phosphates, calcium, and trace elements. Summation. After watching this video, it should be obvious that the introduction of animal protein in man-made genetically modified foods has caused humans to become obese, sick, and diseased. But you should understand that this was not directly caused by you, but by those that benefited financially from the distribution and consumption of these foods. But this video is not about placing blame, but to give you hope. There are some changes you can make to your diet that will cause you to receive a better return on your efforts. First, clean your colon. How? Do a water and fruit juice fast for 3 to 7 days. Then, increase your daily water intake to 1 gallon of spring water a day. Also, eliminate the intake of genetically modified foods. Eliminate the intake of table sugar. Eliminate the intake of animal protein. Note, substituting fish protein is one way of decreasing your intake of protein. And of course, increase your intake of non-genetically modified plants created by Mother Earth. Now, here is the good news. Dr. Sebi has identified the foods that do not contain sucrose and starch. Good health can be achieved by simply eating only the foods from the Dr. Sebi Nutritional Guide. And finally, go to YouTube and watch Ty's Conscious Kitchen. He uses recipes that only contain ingredients from Dr. Sebi's approved foods list. This is important. No diet or exercise program can be effective unless you first clean your colon. This is Dr. Sebi's nutritional guide and approved foods list. You should pause the video to read the list or go online and look for Dr. Sebi's approved foods list. Good luck.